So, last Sunday we had a great lunch after the service, and as some were trying to clean up, the kids were running around here, and I went to wrangle them back. They're pretty comfortable here to sort of explore wherever they want. And as I was getting them out of the foyer, the door to the prayer and meditation room was open, and my granddaughter, Riley, not to be confused with my husband, Riley, so we call her Riley Girl, walked by and she said, "Oh, can we go in there?" I said, "Well, if you can go in, and this is a place for prayer and meditation, it's sacred, so you have to go in and be quiet." And she immediately walked to one of the prayer cushions, sat down, crossed her legs, did the mudras, and closed her eyes. And it kind of shocked and delighted me all at the same time, and I started laughing. And she opens her eyes and looks over at me without moving a muscle and says, "Nana, I am working on balancing my energy here. Could you please be quiet?" And I said, "Yes, I will be quiet. You go ahead, we'll just wait here while you do that." And she lasted about 20 seconds. "Okay, I'm good, my energy's all balanced," and off we went. It gives me hope, because these young children are decades ahead of where I ever was at that time in my growing up years, and that they get this. It's a natural thing to them. They don't have to think about it too hard. In that place where they are, in their young, open-minded possibility place, that just comes natural to them. The goal of this series that we've been on, that we're wrapping up today, of living in the light, is really that goal about finding unity, about being able to tap into, be aware of that oneness that's always present as we have and navigate this human experience. Or as Jesus, he didn't say it directly, but it's become sort of the popular phrase. It's another one of those good things to explore. The Bible doesn't exactly say this, but I'm sure you've heard it: to be in this world and yet not of the world. When we find ourselves in that space of separation, feeling separate, we find ourselves with this never-ending set of choices of either or. And they are motivated by those egoic desires of either fear or desire. Every moment that we're in there, we're being motivated by what we choose to do and to say and to feel and to experience, when we're not aware that right in the midst, there's all that we need. Even when things are going well, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, it's like there's a part of you, your psyche, that's always on the lookout for that proverbial next shoe to drop, for this inevitable, unpredictable arrival of pain and suffering. We can't even enjoy that moment because we're just always ready for when the next thing is going to happen. The book has given us lots of things to practice. I hope some of those have made their way into how you engage with your day-to-day life, that bring us to that greater connection, that sense of oneness, that sense of wholeness, that allows us to live from a place, as he's talked about, greater social intelligence, emotional intelligence, body intelligence, the importance of the breath and being aware of that breath as we're going through our days. And I certainly hope and pray that you perhaps have had more and more experiences. Sometimes they're fleeting, but at least moments where you're in that awareness of the light present, even when the circumstances seem dark. This last chapter in the book, Living in the Light by Deepak Chopra, that we've been using, is really all about how we can do this more and more. The goal is, the ideal would be that we could go through every experience that we're having and let them be something that expands the light rather than diminishes it. It explores the last three limbs of royal yoga and their focus, which are considered to be intricately intricately linked. You can think of them like three legs of a stool that are all supporting that sense of wholeness in your being. And hopefully I'm going to say these right. The first one is dharana, and it is about how you can feel and experience and have an awareness of that abundance while you are simultaneously living out the day-to-day human experiences of life. The second is dhyana, which is transcendence, or going beyond the limits of that everyday life to be able to see things and engage in things from a different perspective, from the perspective of the light. And finally, the third one is samadhi, which is all about being present in the now moment. Whatever that now moment is, being fully awake in it with as much awareness as possible. When we're looking at understanding this leg of dharana, one of the underlying premises is that everything has a source. Whether it's the source of this universe, we know it through what science calls the Big Bang Theory, or your next thought, that all has a source. The challenge comes in knowing what that source is. It's difficult to answer because it's beyond our sense of logic, it's beyond our senses, these five senses that we use to engage and have experiences with. It's even beyond words, the adequate words to describe this. This is what mystics and poets have grappled with for so long. They may have been in a greater experience of it, but it was difficult to try and describe that. I think this is why Jesus used so many analogies. All throughout the scriptures, he's saying, well, the kingdom of heaven is like this. He just doesn't say the kingdom of heaven is, because it's not describable in the context of words, so he would use examples to try and help people be able to tap into this. In Christianity, we would call this source God, or perhaps unique to unity, we might call it Christ consciousness, or as Jesus described it, this experience where the Father and I are one. God and I are one. There's no difference. It's one in the same. It opens the way for us to explore for our own experience of what that source is, how we experience that source. For some, it might show up in those moments where you are in this pure, boundless existence. Sometimes that happens when we're standing in the midst of the amazing worldly things that Mother Nature has created over time, like the Grand Canyon. We're in that experience and everything seems boundless and unlimited. Sometimes it might be this awareness that, without even being prompted by thought, that we're in the midst of this all. We are an infinite part of it. It may come in those moments where, for at least those brief times, there's no fear. Nothing scares us. Nothing worries us. When we're in that realm of infinite creative potential, when we're able to see possibilities far beyond what has currently showed up in our life. When we hear a truth that gives us that sense of absolute knowing, that doesn't require us to be able to explain it or even put it into words, we just know that that's an eternal truth. And certainly in those moments where we feel that sense of unity, sometimes it's in a smaller connection with someone else, in a group of people. Have you ever felt that when you're in a crowd of people and you're all in the same energy and space? Oftentimes that can happen here. It is an awareness that opens us up to seeing things, to experiencing things, to engaging in whatever's happening from a different perspective. We know we're out of it pretty quickly when there's fear, when there's worry, when we feel disconnected from those that are around us. But that is just temporary, because we're always connected to the source. What's been disconnected is our awareness of it. It is something that is difficult to describe and to name. In my few experiences during meditation time, and I've been doing it for a long time, I've had those moments where all of a sudden this I piece of me ceased to exist, and I was one. There was no me. But what was interesting in those phenomena is as soon as my brain kicked in, as soon as a thought kicked in, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I'm in the one with all and all with one. Gone. It's like it resists our attempts to try and put it into a limited state, and it's even more difficult to even describe what that looked like. The Tao Te Ching says that the source that can be named is not the source. It is beyond what we can conceive of in this limited state of this human experience. Think about that. When you're trying to figure out, you just sometimes have to allow it to be without necessarily having to understand the way the mind and the other parts of our humanness want to understand it from. The second leg, called dhyana, is our ability to transcend, to go beyond these everyday experiences. We're in the midst of them, but it allows us to move beyond that. And this is something that we have as a natural ability. Each of us have it. And we do even use it pretty often in our interactions. We just don't always see it and understand it in that way. Because if we didn't have this ability to transcend, we would have never evolved. We wouldn't have evolved from the place we were hundreds of thousands of years ago to the creative beings that we are today. Think about it. So, have you ever been around a baby that was crying? Most of the time, unless it's been a really long period of time with a baby that's crying, we don't go ahead and start crying with the baby. We transcend their moments and say, what is it that's causing the discomfort of the baby? We go on this exploration to try and figure out how we can bring them to a greater place of comfort. We have this ability to look beyond what's just happening in this moment, to see it and to engage with it from a different perspective. We can look at a gold watch and a gold spoon and a gold coin and see that they are all very different. And yet we also have the ability to sort of transcend what's showing up as an appearance to say, but yes, they're all of the same essence, which is gold. That capacity lives within us, and all it's asking us to do is to cultivate it in greater and greater ways, beyond the everyday to that realm where we can transcend even the most difficult parts of our lives. Here are what he suggests are the signposts when we're in that space of seeking to transcend. We go within for our answers, that we contemplate new possibilities or different ways and ideas of how we are going to be with it. We get those insights or those aha moments where everything just seems to click and we can see it and understand it in a new way. Sometimes glimpsing wonder, those transcendent moments come when you're standing at the foot of those white-capped mountains and just realizing that you are but a small part of this amazing eternal world. We can transcend into some new awareness. I wanted to share a quick example of how this showed up yesterday. I was driving home from here, and I'd had a big week, and I had a big presentation and a big paper to write for this training that I'm in on integral ministry to finish my second semester. So I'm driving home, and I had just been writing about awareness, and so as I was on the highway, I decided I'm going to start to just be aware of the different colors of cars that are riding along with me. I just started noticing, oh, there's red, there's green. And then that kind of led my thought process to go, well, what are all the colors of cars that you've had in your life? And I've had quite a few, and I was realizing that I've had a variety of different colors, from tans and browns and multiple colors of blue and a couple of times red and green. My alien green being my very favorite. That was my last car, and I still get to visit it because it now is being driven by my daughter and her husband, so I see it out there. It makes me happy. It's the only car I've ever bought specifically. I wanted that color. Whenever I've gone, I've looked for the right car and all of it, but I wanted that particular color. But then the awareness came up. I got curious. This is how it often happens. I was like, but you know what? I've never owned a black or a white car. I wonder what that means. I've never had an aversion to having a black or white car. It's just never happened. And the next thought that came was, it's a reflection of your, first it said inability, but I think it's your ability too, to not see life as black and white. Sort of like as within, so without. Whether you call it a gift, sometimes I've thought it was a curse because it's hard to make decisions when you can see all sides of things. To some people it's an irritant when I know that there's people that are very clear in their, this is right, or this is where we should go and this is the direction we shouldn't go, when I'm in the middle, seeing all sides. And it was just like a new awareness. It doesn't mean a whole lot, and it doesn't mean that just because you've owned black or white cars that you don't have the ability to see all sides of things. It was just how this thought process come, but it was a good insight for me when you start to sort of just explore and wonder. Oh, I just wonder why that is. And it's true. It reflects, at least in part, my journey. And the flip side is when we're unaware and we're just operating from our sense of separation. And that, it shows up. We're scattered, there's anxiety, there's tension, there's indecision, and oftentimes all we're really wanting to do is just escape it. Just find some way to make it all go away. Behind every experience, there's an awareness. This is the main thrust of this last chapter. Every experience, there's awareness if we're willing to seek it out. It's always here for us if we're willing to look at it. And sometimes it takes softening our focus, going within in order to see it. And that's the meditation that I'm going to do today. We're going to do something a little different. You don't have to close your eyes, but I would invite you. Yes, thank you. Byron's going to come and just play a little bit underneath, just to kind of get comfortable where you are right now. And when you've just sort of settled in, you can keep your eyes open and focus on some object in the room. You can look at the stained glass or the TVs, the table up here, the prayer box, whatever catches your eye, just allow yourself to focus on that. And once you've looked at it for a few minutes, see if you now can tune it out by allowing your eyes to go into soft focus. Just let the edges blur while you move your attention to your heart in the center of your chest, keeping your eyes open, but just softening what you're looking at and bringing your attention to your heart. Now bring your eyes back into sharp focus again on that particular item. Just let your whole awareness take in everything you're seeing. And now soften your gaze on it and bring your attention back to your heart. And spend just another minute or so just going back and forth, seeing with sharp focus and then letting it soften and bringing that same sense of focus, that sharp awareness to your heart space. Now take a deep breath with me. And as you let that breath go, know that this is something you can do anytime you're wanting to just bring a sharper awareness into your own being, into your own heart. And whenever you're ready, you can just be present again in the room. So the author Deepak Chopra says that this is one method that can help you transcend, have that experience of transcending. That whenever you're feeling distracted or stressed or worried, just take a moment, get present with an object in a room, and then soften it and bring that awareness back to your heart. It helps you begin to bring your whole being into an awareness of something more, an awareness that's there waiting for you to tap into it. The final leg in this trio of practices is samadhi. And that's really just the practice of being present. Sounds so simple. Just be present. Just be here. Just be, aware, fully aware of what's happening in this moment. In its highest form, it's an experience that brings you to a place of stillness in the midst of chaos. When we're engaged and not really present in the moment, but we're thinking about what we're going to say or what we're going to do, or we're reliving something of the past that's happened, that might be related to the situation, then we're in the midst of the chaos. I like to see it as being the eye of the storm in the middle of a hurricane. We know scientifically that there is a space in there that is perfectly still, even though it's surrounded by chaos. Aware brings us, and when we're in that present moment, to even the intensity of feelings that we have when different things show up in our life. We're not going to do it here, but here's an exercise that I would encourage you to do in your own time. To make a list of at least one thing, maybe even up to 3 things that you like. Maybe it's a movie, or it's a book that you've read, or a favorite food. And then make a list of 3 things that you really, really like. Maybe it's going to the beach or being engaged in deep spiritual discussion. And then make a list of 3 things that you deeply love. Oftentimes that's a child or a partner or creating art, something that just makes your soul sing. And then close your eyes and imagine each one of those with the intention of being aware of the intensity of the feelings. You'll find usually there's less intensity with those things that you really like, but as you get to that place of the things that you deeply love, it brings a greater sense of intensity to that particular moment. And it helps you fine-tune your own awareness, to be aware of how you are being in the midst of doing life. These are all different levels of awareness. And the deeper that you live in this light, from this light, you discover amazing possibilities. You discover what the mystics and the poets have written about. And I want to leave you with these words from William Blake. And that is, and you've probably heard this before, when you're living in the light, you are able to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. It brings you to the place where you remember that indeed we live in a wonderful world. Well, it is our opportunity to share of our financial good with this ministry. And in just a moment, the ushers are going to invite you to come up row by row, place your gift into the large basket, and then receive an affirmation to bless you this week. And we want you to come forward even if it's not your time to share or you give electronically. You can use one of the little cards that you'll find in those pockets in front of you, or just simply put your hand over the basket and add your energy of abundance and see it flowing in and through us as a community. So let us join together as we bless all that is ours and all that is ours to receive and to give. Together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother God. Just step into the awareness of what a beautiful, wonderful, God-filled world we live in as we go, knowing our prayer for protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.